Wheel of Genre, the show for readers who don't dare fail that test. This is a terrible reference to this. Okay, so right now we are reading every story in the Weird Anthology, including this one, Lucius Shepard's Shades. I'm Zach, and this week I am really interested in trauma narratives, and the kind of therapeutic journey playing out in the text and us kind of traveling along with the protagonist in that.
I'm Bob. I'm really interested in how this feels in many ways like a traditional ghost story, but then also it seems to be playing with, okay, other dimension. How do we get to that other dimension? What do we do once we're there? And then how do we even communicate with ghosts? I think there's a lot of ghosts, ghost physics here, Zach.
Ghost physics, indeed.
Ghostics.
Yeah, this story had me writing maybe more notes about what is the nature of ghost than I think any story we've read so far. But, one of these days we're going to get around to reading the Penguin book of ghost stories or something like that. Just some old ghost yarns. And I think I'll get more notes on that subject. But before we talk about the story itself, I learned something really, really interesting about this story. And I'm just going to quote from an interview with Lucius Shepard. He says, "Shades was a story that could have been very sentimental, and I had to constantly fight the tendency to let it drift into tearjerker territory. In fact, the original narrator was a woman, an old girlfriend of the soldier, but I quickly understood that this was a mistake and changed her into a man who had emotional baggage relating to the war, but mostly negative memories as related to the ghost soldier." Mm-hmm. So, I mean, to me, this is, I don't know, I just love these little insights. I can't even imagine this story through the perspective of, an old girlfriend of the soldier, not even having the soldier be present, having another layer of abstraction, someone coming to find the significance of the place to someone else who is off screen, off page, off, not within the reader's point of view or in their sights. So, yeah, I don't know. That kind of set my imagination dancing a little bit.
Oh, I don't know much about Lucius Shepard except for Virgil loves him, so that's good enough for me. Virgil from Literally Books. So I was really excited to read this. It's very interesting to think about what it would be if this were a love story. If this were like a not unrequited love, but I guess a love that stopped due to death. That would be quite different. I want to talk a little bit about the plot, and I think I will need lots of help. This is a windy, weird, a weird story. We have two main characters, but then we also have kind of a scientist who's pushing to make all of these things happen. So really, there's kind of three main characters. Our main guy is Mr. Puleo, and he's a soldier. The other guy, who's a ghost now, but sometimes doesn't really appear to be a ghost, and it's hard to tell if he is already dead or not, or if it's a memory, but it seems he's just a ghost the whole time. And he is Stoner. He's just referred to as Stoner. Then there is Two, who is the experimenter, the scientist who's pushing for all of these things to happen. But basically, Zach, as far as I know, Puleo and Stoner were in the same company, and Stoner was just a really bad soldier. Like, he didn't know what he was doing. He'd just go off and do whatever. And then one day, in the Vietnam War, Stoner is just off doing nothing. All of these other guys are getting way too violent. He wants to be away from them. And Puleo and his other men are carrying out, I don't know, terrorism, their mission, whatever they're doing. But Stoner just goes off and starts war crimes. Yeah, we're not exactly sure. They're probably not doing anything good. Like, they're probably just harassing people or hurting people. But he goes off and he shoots at a hut that's empty and turns out not to be empty and is full of TNT, and it just explodes. So this is all in the past, but it's told to us through Puleo, who is our narrator. And it seems like he is haunting this place now, Stoner, but he just appears and has regular conversations with people if he is in the fields. And it looks like Two, the experimenter, has set up these different places to observe ghosts who come back and then have people go and talk to them to see what these ghosts are really up to. When Stoner comes up to Puleo, they have a full conversation, and Two is like, oh my God, this has never happened before. Usually people go and talk to him, and then he just leaves, he gets bored. He has no connection to him, but because you two have a connection, he is going to stay, and we're going to try and observe him. We they become more and more kind of embroiled here, because as he agrees to do all these experiments, Stoner invites Puleo into another realm, into the shade world, into the once you're dead world, and he sends him messages basically that put him in his dreams in Stoner's footsteps, like in his body, and then he can go and interact in the real world. He calls all of these things tests, and so anytime he talks to someone in the shade, in this underworld, in this dream place, he knows he has to beat the test. The tests are really, really, really strange, and we can talk a lot about those. Eventually, it becomes what looks like maybe letting a ghost go on to move on, letting a ghost no longer possess this space like a genius loci, letting the genius loci go. I'm not exactly sure what the goal is at the end, but it's full of fireworks and it's full of sparks. But Zach, what am I missing from this summary?
Well, I really like the connection to a genius loci of the place, but it's kind of like a trauma memory of the genius loci. Yeah. I like that a lot. Wow, I think that, you said you needed help, but I don't think you needed much. The two things I want to add is
pass the test.
Yeah, the test. Well, there's the test, but previously in another ghost story we read, John Ray's, oh my God, not the main Salter, but the shadowy street. We had another ghost, and that ghost just went, Mo, Mo.
Yeah.
And this ghost goes, Puleo. So I like
it's a step up.
Yeah. We got an additional syllable added in there. So that was cool. As for the ending, so it seems like the revelation is this mystic, this Vietnamese mystic Marxist, I believe his name is Tu, T-U-U, Tu. He, it turns out that he's actually done this kind of like test and experimentation before. I guess it's not really clear to me. I guess it doesn't really matter at all, but they're confining these ghosts in there with some kind of like electric field, some kind of electromagnetic barrier. But when they send in someone the ghost knows, the ghost appears to kind of draw power from them. It's a very vampiric relationship where he's drawing just enough life force to sustain himself, but not enough to kill the host, So in the end, the ghost escapes and goes running through the woods and lighting palm trees on fire as it goes. It's not clear to me whether the ghost has been dissipated after that, or if it will kind of lose power, or if it's, just off to go haunt somewhere else. We don't care as long as it's not haunting this village. So all of that's unclear, but what the revelation at the end is that Tu has done this more than once. This is not the first time. So this is kind of like a Vietnamese intelligence, Vietnamese military established technique for exorcising the ghosts of the Vietnam War.
And we never exactly get to find out why, too. That final scene is absolutely insane. And Puleo is pissed. Like, he could have died. And he even tells him, like, you could have killed me, because Stoner grows to twice his size. He leaves like his ghostly body and becomes this kind of almost light being. And all of these tendrils from all of the field, it seems like they're shooting him. He's shooting back at them. There's tons of energy that could be extremely explosive, almost like when he blew up the TNT in the first place. And now Puleo's in his place. There are so many interesting theories that Tu seems to all know, and they all work together for him, but they are just hinted at when he drops little hints, and then when Puleo tries and explains them to us, because he's our narrator. But some of them are so interesting. Tu says that I believe a ghost is a quality that dies in a man long before he experiences physical death. So the ghost is already there, present, before you die. He says something that has grown acclimated to death and thus survives the body. It might be love or an ambition, an element of character. It could be anything. I have such a ghost within me, as do you, Mr. Puleo. My ghost senses yours. And it's interesting because Puleo it's so scarred from the war, and that is some of the best writing in this story about just hating the war, talking about how terrible it was, talking about how just messed up his life is now. But it seems like he has his own ghosts to deal with, and you said it's a bit of a trauma narrative as well. He has a ghost within him, 2 has a ghost within him, but that's not what they're dealing with at all.
Yeah.
Like they're dealing with a real ghost with a lot of power.
Well, yeah. So that's a great point to make. I as he said that, I was kind of thinking of the book we just read pretty recently, David Lindsay's A Voyage to Arcturus, of which, I guess spoilers, at this point, the book is passed into public domain, but the kind of mystic cosmic vision at the end of it is that, all of flesh is a certain kind of thing, but trapped inside all the forms of this earth are what they call the green corpuscles of will, passion, that life force that is present within every single person. And anyways, I was kind of reminded of that, like this idea that the ghost itself is kind of like, it's that part of you that is I can't forget what words you just used, but it's the passion for something. It's that element of character. But he seems to say that it actually dies or it leaves you. So I guess I should say the innovation of this, where this differs is 2 seems to say that ghost seems to leave people by a certain age. People become bland. The NPCification of your average person as they, go to work, pay their mortgage, and have a family. But Paleo still has that ghost, and so does 2. So it's kind of it's a real, recognized, real situation. My ghost reaches out for your ghost within you. It's nice, sweet.
Do you think that is connecting to the supernatural elements of the ghost in this too? Because that seems very metaphorical. It's the spirit, it's your ambition, it's whatever is inside of you, this ghost thing why is it dead, I guess? If it's dead, you just dropped it, or is it dead even if you still continue those ambitions? But when Stoner is explaining to Paleo a number of things, one, which we got to come back to, like, how am I communicating with you in the first place? How am I sending, is what he calls it, these visions. How do we get to this other world? But one thing I want to look at first is and he never answers this either, what on earth does it mean for the ghost to reach his next form? He keeps saying, if I keep walking, if I keep getting this energy, I will evolve to my next form. And I think we see that potentially at the end, and that maybe is what 2 is trying to get him to do. But it's just this gigantic, extremely powerful light-like thing. They talk about demons at one point, but I'm curious, this theory about ghosts, usually when we talk about ghosts, it's okay, they're stuck. We need to fix things so they don't become obsessed anymore. It's also kind of a trauma narrative. If you can overcome the trauma, the ghost can finally be at rest and be at peace. But this ghost becomes almost atomic. It becomes a weapon, sort of. Why is that the second stage of evolution?
It's a great question. And, much like that one story, where they open up a portal and you can see the house. What the hell was that story called?
The Window.
Right. Bob Lehman's Window. Yes. Much like that, we're kind of given these strange happenings that are, but we're not really given a lot of context on how they all fit together. And like to add on to the mysteries, the mysteries that you laid out, how does the world of shades fit into all this? How could he simultaneously be, there present in the village walking around and also going through these tests in the world of shades? Does everyone go to the world of shades or just people who are ghostified? There's a lot here. And I think part of the reason why it works so well is because we don't know a lot. We're not given a lot, but it really sets the imagination a dancing.
Dancing through these electrical fields. The world of shades, I think we should get to the world of shades now. And to bridge, I guess, to the world of shades, we can kind of use their method because, and we'll go there too. When Stoner is telling Paleo, there is this other world. He says, I'm going to show this to you. I'm going to try and explain it to you. And, Paleo's like, what on earth are you talking about? And Stoner says, don't worry. I'm going to send you something. Did you get what I sent you last time? He says, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. That night, after they stopped talking, that night, Paleo's already forgotten about it. It's like, okay, this ghost has told me this weird thing. Why am I going to believe it? Then that night he dreams that he is Stoner, and he even has the same. Stoner was really weird and would do kind of weird gestures and weird movements, and Paleo starts doing those in the middle of his dream. So it's not just that he is like Stoner, it's like he is actually in the world of shades, seeing through Stoner's eyes and making decisions for him, but he has his body and all of his regular physical movements, I suppose. When he gets there, like, what are they doing, Zach? The scene is nuts, but what on earth is the tests, do you think? Are they trying to test to purge themselves of something?
We don't know what the test is. He's just sure that it's a test, and he just decides that, how do we talk about this on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay. So when he gets to the test, he meets another shade, or at least we're not sure if if she's a shade, but she seems to self-represent as herself being a shade, who was a prostitute from the same area in which Stoner used to pick up prostitutes, but he's not sure if he's met her before. But I think to me, the reader, the implication is like, why have him encounter this prostitute if he has not met her before? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I feel like it's a re-encounter rather than a first encounter. They just don't remember each other. But so the test is, well, we're not even really sure how it's a test, if it's a test, why it's a test, what it's testing for. But they start having sex, and then while they're having sex, suddenly his pleasure drops off into nothing. And then she starts turning into centipedes crawling under her skin. And then he feels his pleasure turn into pain, and he realizes that there's centipedes inside her. And then he gets it into his mind that the test is, if he stops, he has failed the test. So he keeps going. And this kind of underworld encounter really brings me back to a couple other stories that we read earlier in the anthology, which feature a very similar dynamic. Olympia Belli Kanam's A Child in the Bush of Ghosts. That's the one where the kid is like, his dad's like, hey, I'm just going to go over there for a bit. Or his uncle is like, I'm going to go over there. You just wait here for me. And the uncle like never comes back. And he wanders through the trees for hours and hours and hours. It's a very magical, mystical thing. Later in the story, he descends underground into the world of the dead where there's skeletons. And then he finds then he has his like coming of age sexual experience. So, I'm not saying that these are the same thing, but I am saying that there's this kind of like recurring image in many of these stories that feature a descent underground and then some kind of like extremely symbolically meaningful sexual encounter. What to make of all that? Don't know. What's the test? Don't know. But it stuck with me. It's a powerful, powerful story.
It's powerful. One thing that I think was really interesting in this, because why on earth is this happening? Why is it a test? He seems to have had multiple tests, and we don't know if they're all sexual. They could be all sorts of different kinds of tests. But in this time, he says, okay, there is the grotesque juxtaposition of the sensual and the horrid. And it seems like that is a big part of it. You have the sensual and the horrid right up against each other, and it's almost like dream logic-y, trying to get you to just commit to whatever this test is, whatever its definition is. You just have to keep going. But the other thing you said too, is this a re-encounter? We're not sure. And if it is, then this place could be very much psychological. If you're in this other realm, it's just your personal place, I guess, your own personal shade world. But it also feels almost video game-like, or truly like Hades-like. You go down there and there's all of these kind of confused shades who don't really know what they're supposed to do, and they just talk to each other, and they're trying to figure out different ways to, move on, get out, goals to achieve. But there is a unclear line between if it's just in his head or if it's truly where shades go after this. The other line, of course, is he's in a dream. So the whole thing we never really get to find out. But what do you think? One of the things that she says when they're in the dream and before the test begins, she says that she has been trying to explore this place. And she said one time she met an old man who said that, who was wandering around, also shade. And he says he had been to a place where a pillar of whirling light and dust joined earth to sky. Voices spoke from the pillar, sometimes many at once, and from them he understood that all wars are merely reflections of a deeper struggle, of a demon breaking free. The demon freed by our war, he said, was very strong, very dangerous. We, the dead, had been recruited to wage war against them. So there's some thing going on in this shade world, and it seems like maybe our main guy, too, has experienced some of this before in his real life. He says that once there was a captain, when they were crawling through a tunnel system, he heard voices speaking through a skull, half buried in the earth. So amidst all of the unclear tests, the strange division, the kind of haunting of Stoner, there seems to be a real, nefarious kind of dead underworld that's creeping up. There seems to be something very heavy happening underneath the rest of the story.
Yeah. I always loved the idea of war as an outpouring of some demonic or chaotic force. We saw something very similar to this in Charles Beaumont's The Howling Man earlier in this anthology, where you had, you had a man behind bars who was howling. And the priest who has him locked up says, "Don't let him out. He's Satan. He's Satan himself." And the man ultimately has a moment of weakness and frees the howling man. And the next time he sees his face is in the newspapers as that man is beginning war on Europe. He's, the cause of World War II. It was a fun story, but it kind of plays along in this idea that war and the conditions of wars have a fundamentally supernatural origin. I like that kind of stuff. I do. What is it doing here though? This is another one of those great threads kind of spiraling off, but it's spiraling off into darkness and emptiness. It's just another one of those things where we just don't know what to make of it. If we had a 5-book series on this, it would be really interesting to, what is the relationship between Stoner and that demon? You know what I mean? Because there's certainly something demonic about him. You have those blue lights in his eyes that are shining out from the pupils. There's something very interesting about that. But we're just not. We're given tantalizing clues, but not enough to. And it's for the best. I'll say that again. It's for the best that we're given these tantalizing clues to make the world feel massive, but we're given very few definitive answers.
So we don't close the world in. I don't want to give a definitive answer because I don't know, of course, at all, but I just am so curious about why Stoner. He's a bad soldier. He made mistakes. He blew himself up like an idiot. And no one seemed to like him at all. And then he's stuck there as a ghost, but he becomes this awesome power at the end. Like you said, he's a demon. I wonder, are these tests for the good? Are you testing yourself to purge yourself? Are you testing yourself to get out of purgatory or whatever this place is, to go on, to move on? Or are you testing yourself to become a better demon? Is he going to be a power for destruction, just like that large pillar of light that is trying to wage a war? When he becomes his evolved, whatever he is, he becomes the next stage of a ghost. It says, now twice human size, he had broken free and was standing at the center of the village, some 20 feet off a bipedal silhouette, through which it seemed like you could look forever into a dimension of fire and crystal, like a hole burned in the fabric of the world. And at this point, he goes almost Super Saiyan. All of these things start kind of crushing. The actual building itself it's described as if 2 giant hands are pushing it down. So it's not collapsing. It's just imploding on itself. He has changed, or maybe he in interaction with these electrical fields, but it seems like he has changed the actual dimensionality of this area because it all is squeezing in as if he is a black hole, or as if he is so massively dense that he is bringing in the rest of our dimension in towards him. And then he goes off and just burns, the trees. Like you said, he burns all those palm trees as he's fleeing away. But I wonder, it's so hard to tell if Stoner is on a path to salvation, on a path to escape, or if he's on a path to continue the war, to make it even more violent.
Oh, yeah. I never considered that. Just the very fact of Stoner before death, he doesn't seem like someone who's particularly interested in continuing the war. He's described as a coward. He's described as kind of an outcast. And all these other guys, they're the tough ones, But Stoner now, Stoner now is a beast of a different feather. So very interested. I think we got to read more Lucius Shepard. I don't know where to begin with that, though. So if you're watching this and you love some Shepard, by God, give us some recommendations, because it seems like he has a lot of stuff. I don't know where to go from here, and yeah, love to hear from you. All right,
Gator
talk to you later, Bob.
Patty Melts and Monte Carlos. Talk to you later, Zach.